Shalom, shalom. We're so glad you're here to be with us today. A very important conversation about peace and justice at a very important time with someone I greatly admire, have spent time to learn from, and continue to learn from, and want to be sure that we open our platforms so that others can learn from him as well. I'm going to give us a slightly long-winded intro just because it's deserving. A descendant of 7 generations of Danish rabbis, Rabbi Melchior was born in Denmark, is an ordained Orthodox rabbi, and immigrated to Israel in 1986. He serves as the Chief Rabbi of Norway and is Av Beit Din of the Scandinavian Countries, and is the rabbi of a vibrant Orthodox community in Yerushalayim. He was elected to the Knesset in 1999 and served for 10 years in roles, including Minister for Social Affairs and World Jewry, Deputy Minister of Education and Culture, and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. In addition, he was the founding chairman of Birthright Israel. Rabbi Michael Melchior is the founder and chairman of the Mosaica Center for Religious Conflict Transformation in the Middle East and the Jerusalem Center for Mediation and Consensus-Building. This initiative aims to discreetly respond to and alleviate crisis situations behind the scenes, while also cultivating a web of relationships between religious and political leaders to advance religious peacebuilding. By acting as an insider religious mediator, Rabbi Melchior has made strides in helping to advance a warm religious peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as well as conflicts around the world. This work includes mitigating violence in mixed Jewish-Arab cities in Israel, as well as helping to facilitate religious rulings that promote human sanctity and dignity. In addition to founding Mosaica, which actively works to build a religious peace between leaders of all religions in the Middle East, and offers professional mediation services adapted to the particular needs of a wide range of sectors, populations, cultures, languages, and religions in Israel, Rabbi Melchior has founded Meitarim, a network of over 170 inclusive Jewish schools and communities in Israel, enabling diverse populations on the Jewish-Israeli sequence to live together and study jointly in an optimal educational climate that allows each and every one to devise their identity. The network assists in establishing and accompanying mixed communities and inclusive educational frameworks. Another organization Rav Melchior founded is the Citizens Accord Forum, which promotes the building of bridges of coexistence and justice between Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs. Rabbi Melchior is also an internationally renowned Jewish leader, thinker, and activist, and a leading advocate for social justice in Israel, interfaith dialogue, and a voice for peaceful coexistence. Rav Melchior, thank you for taking time to talk.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Now I can only spoil it from now on.
So let's start with the ethics of power and responsibility, if we can, just a time where many of us are thinking about that. Drawing on Jewish ethical tradition, what obligations do those with political and religious power have toward the quote-unquote other, especially when security concerns feel existential at times? How do we avoid moral erosion in such contexts?
Well, this is something which, of course, we're groping with, and this is the ultimate test in Israel today, and also for the Jewish world, for anybody who wants to be a leader in the Jewish world. I mean, it was posed, if you remember well, it was posed in the Kuzari, when the king of Kuzar says he says it's very nice with all these good principles which you present. The Chaver, the friend, the Jew, presents all the nice moral principles, but he says that's probably because you have no options. You are in galut. It's necessary in your situation. But when you have power, you will also start killing, and you will prove that you're no different. You will kill, and you will do this in the wrong way, and the Chaver's answers, you have found a very painful spot with us. And then he goes on to say that it's a question if we're truly religious, then we will not fall in that pitfall. And I'm not so sure if he saw what happened today that he would be right. And we've seen this discussion up through Zionism in the challenge of Zionism already from the first Zionist Congress. It's very interesting. There was a Moroccan a participant in the first Zionist Congress who wrote a lot, and he was called Yaakov Bachal, and he wrote a book called Anti. It's called Anti-Goyut B'Tzion. Like anti-Semitism. It was just after the Dreyfus affair and so on. So he writes anti-Goyut, and he puts up a court case that there would once be a racist party running in the Jewish state who hates the other, as you presented it, Rav Shmuley, and the head of this racist party will stand in front of the Sanhedrin and will present his case. And there are those who will say, that חוקה אחת לגר ולאזרח, that everybody should be equal, like it says that it later said in the Israeli Declaration of Independence, which Rabbi Mital Zatzal said that this document has halachic binding because it was agreed upon by everybody and therefore has halachic binding. I could go more into that, but that's not necessary, I think. And that we have to give equality to every citizen in this country, which we don't. The head of this party, he claimed that no, that this is just anti-patriotic, that you and this is a kind of misunderstood cosmopolitic, and so this Yaakov Bachal was apparently some kind of prophet. When we hear all the voices today, unfortunately also in the religious camp in Israel, and this is our ultimate test today when we seek justice and peace. This is our ultimate test, which also has, which also is a test of how we read our texts.
So to go to the concrete a little bit, what's an area where you feel like Jewish or Israeli political or religious power really is being exercised responsibly and wisely? Like there's a real sense of there is an or lagoyim, there is a sense of something exceptional. And where do you think there's a real breakdown, a real moral erosion, a real failure? I mean, obviously there's examples of both, but I wonder if you could highlight a few that speak to you most.
Well, I want to first present that what we're looking for. I was supposed to talk about a vision, and I want to tell you about a conversation I had some time ago. It was around a big table. We don't usually present our. That's why you don't read. I don't give interviews. Usually, I don't give interviews in the press. All our work we have now in the basis of the religious peace initiative, which I started together with Sheikh Abdallah Nimo Dawish Zichrono Livracha. We have together now several hundred religious leaders in the inner core and several thousand in the amongst the activists, and those were not peaceniks who were the ones who were there. And we work with everybody from Muslim Brotherhood to those who come from Egypt and Saudi Arabia, and first of all with the Palestinian Muslim leaders, both inside the borders of Israel 67 and in the Palestinian areas and around the world, by the way. And we were sitting around the table, and one of the Jewish women who was there, she said, "Why do you need to keep on talking about? Why is it not enough just to talk about peace? Why do you need to talk about justice and peace?" And I sat there with one of the biggest poskim, one of the biggest religious decisors of the Muslim world, in the Muslim Brotherhood. He's one of the 5 biggest ones, and he calls me his mentor. I don't know why, but he let me start, and this elaborated into a discussion of 2 hours. What's most important, peace or justice? And we came to the conclusion that we need both peace and justice. But we went through a lot of sources and one of the sources which I took out there is a source which I think is important, and it talks. It's a messianic source, and sometimes we talk about that we don't want the messianic sources, but this is from the end of Mosaica Center, and it really the end of Sanhedrin has all kinds of visions for what will be in messianic times, and this source says, in the name of the Almighty, Halalu Masei Yadai v'Halalu Masei Yadai, that these are my creatures and these are my creatures. Heach abed et elu mipnei elu. How can I let go of these on the expense of these? And then there is a parable in the name of Rav Papa, where he has a beautiful parable, which is apparently a popular parable about an oxen who is very liked by his master, but the oxen falls, he runs and he falls and he becomes sick, and he's brought to a vet, and in the meantime it comes in a horse, and the master now loves the horse, and when the oxen becomes well again, then the master cannot push out the horse, and this is the parable for, says Rashi on the spot. And this was at the time. Again, we have to understand the time. We're talking about the time when those who lived in the land were idle, were of Kochavim, were praying to idols, right? And still, God says, I became to like them. And therefore, when the Jews do tshuva, and Rashi says, Shechozrim Yisrael b'tshuva v'nig'alim, and we come to messianic times, to the times of geula, of redemption. Come to times of redemption. I can't push out those who now have come to the land, even though they were Ovdei Kochavim. So much so, when they're not Ovdei Kochavim, when they are praying to one God, like those who are today in the land, so much so that you can't push out those for those. So therefore, this is the concept of not only of peace, but of a righteous peace. because God is righteous and God cannot do such a thing. This is righteous. So we have the two peoples living in the land between the river and the sea, which has become a loving slogan around the world also, from the river to the sea. And there are those who think that only from the river to the sea, it's only Palestine can be, or only from the sea to the river, only Israel can be. And the Talmud says no, from the river to the sea, there can be Palestine and there can be Israel living next to each other in peace. And this is really also the basis for in the Parshat Shavua, which we read this week, which is the basis for all the rules of Shemitah and Yovel, where we read Ve'aretz lo timacher letzmitut. You cannot sell the land forever. Why not? Because it's not yours. There is no such thing as sovereignty, as full sovereignty. Kili kol haaretz, because all the land belongs to the Almighty. The real sovereignty belongs to Almighty, and we are temporary residents here in the land. And therefore we should respect each other here in the land. And there's no better place. So I am a staunch Zionist. I want to stress that. I believe that we have come back to our land as a fulfillment of the prophetic visions. And I'm still, in spite of everything which we're doing, and we're doing a lot of bad things, okay? In spite of that, I am still a staunch Zionist. And I believe that the Jewish people has a right to come back and fulfill the prophetic vision. That's a personal belief. But I believe that also, according to all the laws and of international law, we have that right. And we have today 50% of the Jewish people living here, and the majority of Jewish creativity and so on is being created here in this land. You wanted beautiful things which are happening. It's happening here in this land, in culture, in science, also in how we in many ways we work together, we treat each other, and so on. There are many good things happening, and there are many good people happening who are making it happen. There's a lot of volunteering in the land. There's so much good happening in the land, and I believe that this is part of the prophetic vision. But if that is part of the prophetic vision, it's also a part of the prophetic vision that there is another people living here. And the other people has lived here, and they're not strangers in the land. It's not, they're strangers also living here, which we need to treat properly. Those are refugees. But there is another people living here, and they have the same right as we have to self-determination in this land. And when we crush that right, we're crushing Zionism. Then there is no Zionism. That is what is happening. And we have the basis for that when we go out and we make settlements and everything which is happening. I know that you're having also as a guest next week Rabbi Din and so on. He'll talk about. I know this in and out. What is happening today it's all a result of the occupation. When we go out and do these things, and it's all paid for by the government. It's not some hilltop youth and so on. Everything is organized. Everything is planned. Everything is done. It's part of a shita. When you come in with hundreds of young people and you smash houses and you burn them down and you steal from people and you kill and you steal and you go into villages and for innocent people. I've also been just a couple of weeks ago. I went and saw and I know what's going on. You also know what's going on, but it's still different when you see it with your eyes. and and uh, and this is not what is in any way acceptable, and we celebrate it. We celebrate it. It's not just a question of Ben Gvir, Smotrich, or the government or this. We celebrate it. We give honors to rabbis who say that to kill also people who are not involved, and to burn down houses and so on is a big mitzvah, and we give honors to such rabbis. And this is what the real battle is about. And
So what I hear you saying
the
there is
only
that
solution of this, I want to tell you, it's not to find a solution to come out with a condemnation of one or other thing. The solution of this is to make peace. And I believe in that solution more than ever before. I think that we're not that far away from that solution. I ונתתי, this is also פרשת שבוע, נתתי שלום בארץ ושכבתם ואין מחריד. The only way we can go to bed at night, both in Arizona and in New York and in Jerusalem, we go to bed and sleep properly at night, which we can't do today, is if we make peace, if we make proper peace. And we also have some formulas for that. I want to talk a little bit about that, with your permission.
please.
Because today it's a big jump to say people are afraid here, and you can understand all the fears after 7th of October and the terrible massacres and so on. You can understand all the fears and so on. But minds change, okay? We've had this before. We need to create a kind of Sadat moment. You remember when Sadat, you're too young because you weren't born then probably, but that day in November, Motzei Shabbat, when Sadat came here, he was the most hated person here. He was a Nazi sympathizer. He made the most terrible war we had in Yom Kippur War and so on. But when he decided to come to Yerushalayim and stand in the Knesset and say, no more war, that moment, everything changed. So while people, he brought over Menachem Begin, and he brought over Ezra Weizmann, who was sure he was coming in with a plane full of people who were going to kill the whole leadership of the states of Israel. What I can tell you today is that there is a great movement, not just in the Arab world, which is known, but in the Muslim world, in the Islamic world. They're not going to become Zionists. Okay? It's not. I know that those who have dialogue with Muslims, with Muslim Zionists. I don't deal with Muslim Zionists. It's not interesting. Okay? Just as I don't think the Muslims should deal with with Jews who come from Neturei Karta, or Jews who are in, I don't know, what's it called in America, Jews for
Students for Palestine, Jewish Voice for Peace.
Jewish Voice for Peace and so on. I say, if you want to deal with the Jews, you have to deal with the Zionists. You have to deal with those who believe in the main bulk of Judaism. When you deal with me, you have to deal with Israelis. You have to deal with those who come with an Israeli passport, not with you have to deal with me as a Zionist, okay, who has his children and his grandchildren in the front, in the IDF, in elite units and so on. This is what you need to deal with. If you want to make peace, this is what you have to make peace with. And the same way, when we deal with the Muslims, we need to deal with those who are representing the vast bulk of Islam. And what I've seen there, the development over the last 15 years, is unbelievable. And the sources. So what we're talking today about is a kind of solution which, interestingly enough, we have also in our sources. They believe that this is Dar el Harb, that this is part of the Waqf, part of the holy Muslim land. And we believe that the whole land is also part of Eretz Israel, which has been promised to our forefathers. So we have this is totally symmetry, okay? We believe, both of us, that everything is ours. But at the same time, they have found the biggest poskim, and they have written fatwas based on precedents in Muslim law, and I can mention many different examples for that, but the most famous I'll just mention here is the agreement which was made by the greatest warrior of Islam, who was Salah ad-Din, who made a peace treaty in Lud, Ramle, with the Crusaders. And he gave up land as a peace treaty, which was to stand. In the end, the Crusaders broke the deal, and then it only lasted for a certain amount of years, but it was because they broke the deal. Now, we have found equivalent, besides from the poskim who say that we're allowed to give up land, like Rav Ovadia Zatzal and Rav Shach and many others who say that we're allowed to give up land. Not talking about those. I'm talking about those who believe, those who are who believe that, according to the Ramban, or those who are that we cannot, the tzmitut, give up land. And even if we say that it's ours, although we haven't the ribunut, we haven't put a sovereignty on the land and so on. And it's interesting enough to see that there are all kinds of britot, of covenants, which have been made. First of all, the famous covenants have been made by our forefathers, where they gave up land. If you just take the pshat in the Torah, Abraham and Yitzchak, who gave up land in the agreements which they made with for with Avimelech, and they made a covenant, and the Avimelech made first with Abraham Avinu and Alav Shalom, and that was only for some generations. And then there's a discussion, it's in the Talmud and it's in all kinds of midrashim, if it was broken by Avimelech, and therefore he made another covenant with Yitzchak. And that covenant lasted. It lasted for many hundreds of years. And even Mefarshim, like even the Ramban himself, explains in Dvarim that was the reason why Bnei Yisrael, when we went out of Mitzrayim, that we didn't go Derech Eretz Plishtim, because there was an agreement. And the Ramban says himself that that's the reason why we didn't go, because we didn't want to break the covenant. And why was it broken? Either in the days of Shimshon or David, only because they broke it. And and there are different midrashim about this, but this is mefurash. I mean, these are mefurash. The midrash says that Abraham also made a deal about Yerushalayim. The Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says that he made a swap with Marat Machpelah and Yerushalayim. So he gave the Yevusim, the Jebusites, or what's it in English? The Jebusites, he gave Yerushalayim. But that's already Midrash. I'm talking about the things which are mefurash in the text. That you're allowed to make covenants, you're allowed to make peace agreements and give up land if that is right for you. Shlomo HaMelech, the King Solomon, gave up 20 cities in the Galil as a part of his covenant with the king of Tzur, and they were Ovdei Avodah Zarah. They were idol. They prayed to the idols. They were not like the Muslims today, where the rules of Lo Techonem does not apply. And there's a rabbi who I know that you are very fond of quoting, Rav Chaim Hirschensohn. Am I right?
I haven't quoted him so often, but
Okay.
he's a fine person to quote.
You should. Okay, Rav Chaim Hirschensohn was born in Yerushalayim, but later on he also the Kanaim were after him here in Yerushalayim.
He went to New Jersey, right?
What?
He went to New Jersey,
New
I think.
Jersey. He lived there from 1857 to 1935. He wrote a lot. And very interesting things. He has a book called Elu Divrei HaBrit, where he goes through all the Britot. Now he thinks that he's very much for Eretz Yisrael HaShlema. Very much. It's all ours and we can't give it up. Litzmitut. But he says, this is very interesting. This is also connected to the Parshat Shavua. He says that you can take units of 49 years. Of course, we know where that comes from, the unit of 49 years. And you can make agreements for units of 49 years, where you can, with the other peoples living here, give up the land for 49 years. And then a few years before that, you can then renew it for another 49 years and for another 49 years. So when we have talked now with our most extreme Muslim partners, what we're talking about with them, because for them it's also very difficult to give up forever. So we've talked with them about having a warm peace, but for periods of 40 or 49 years, in any case, we're talking about Vatishkot haaretz 40 shana, that's a good period that we can have that, and it will be renewable. That as long as both sides do not breach it, then it will be renewable for another 40 years, and another 40 years, and another 40 years, and this is something which is acceptable for them. Because then, and it will be a warm peace, right? It will be not a cold peace like we have today with those we have peace with, because we haven't solved the main issue. And we will be able to travel with each other and go with each other and so on.
It's a beautiful vision.
It's
a beautiful vision, and I love the underlying theology that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu owns anything fully. That we don't own our bodies, we have to donate organs. We don't own our property, we have to give maser. We don't own the land, we have to make peace. That speaks to me very deeply. And on the one hand, I hear you saying we're in a bigger mess than ever. with settlers, with occupation, and with but I hear you saying that it's not bad apples of Ben Gvir and Smotrich and Hilltop Youth. What I hear you saying is that it's systemic to the system. On the other hand, I hear you saying we're not far from peace. So which one is it? Are we in the biggest mess ever, and there's almost no light at the end of the tunnel, or is it that we actually in some way peace is attainable in our time?
I believe with my full heart that peace is absolutely attainable. I mean, even if you look at the Trump plan, which Israel fully accepted, and although we didn't like, we have the most right-wing government ever, and we fully accepted it. And it talks about the aspiration of having a Palestinian state. And this was accepted by Smotrich and Ben Gvir and Kari and all the different government ministers. Now, of course, they said that they didn't like this paragraph and that paragraph, but they can say that, but they accepted it. And I think it's good that they accepted it, because it's always better that it comes from them than it comes from anybody else. And so they accepted it, and I think that if it's again a question, it's a lot of question of how you put the wording. Okay, if you talk about a demilitarized state and so on, so even they can say, they can call it I don't know, autonomy plus, we call it the state minus, whatever you want to call it, and it's absolutely achievable. We've seen things which we didn't believe were achievable. The people, I want to say to you, the people here in Israel, they don't want to live constantly in wars. They want, and the same goes for the Palestinians. I mean, I talk to more than anybody else, really, including the most radical. They really, I mean, it's not what they say, and I'm not talking about all the public statements and so on. I'm talking about they really want just for happiness for their children, for their grandchildren. Just now they're so miserable, and they have nothing. They have nothing to live off, and we're taking even the nothing from them. So they really, but if you ask them if they believe that there can be peace, no, nobody believes it. Less than a statistical error believes it. But if it's put in front of them, and suddenly they will hear a loud and clear voice from all the Arab and all the Muslim countries, and suddenly they will hear from all of Islam, from all the different factions. They will hear a loud and clear voice, which says, like what Sadat said, that day in Yerushalayim. Then this is what 95% of the Israelis want. I don't think that we want to be the oppressors. I don't think that that's what that people want. It's really not, and it's doing very, very bad for us. And therefore, this is what gives me hope. I've seen also all kinds of statistics and so on. It depends what you ask people. And when you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. And when you put the vision in front of people, I talk to so many young people here. I've never talked to young people and they haven't been caught by the vision. So this is what I see. This is what I see with the young Israelis, and this is what gives me that hope, which that we're not that far away. So my late father, Zichrono Livracha, used to say that if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's not because it's not there. It's because the tunnel isn't straight.
Mm-hmm.
It goes a little backwards and forwards,
Very nice.
and this is what everything is about. What we're talking about. This is also, I think, important for Jews around the world, because what we really came for here, as it says in the Torah, many different places, we came to do, as a, God says to us, Mi goy gadol, asher lo chukim u'mishpatim tzadikim k'kol haTorah azot, that that who is this great people who has righteous laws, and this is chokmatchem ubinatchem leinei ha'amim, that this is so it's not shmum, like it's not
Yeah.
it's not that it doesn't matter. It's
Right.
it's it's in the eyes of the peoples also. We say it doesn't
Right.
matter what the people in Europe say, what the people in the US say, what the Democrats and now the young Republicans and it does matter. It does absolutely matter what they say. They're not all anti-Semites. The anti-Semites we'll deal with, but they're not all anti-Semites, and it does matter what they say.
Yeah.
And we want to present the Torah as it should be presented, and we want to present Israel as such. And it's not a question of hasbara; it's a question of substance.
And can we meet through a religious discourse? Meaning, so much of the barrier is often religion as a driver of division, religion exacerbating conflict. Can we meet in a messianic vision or on certain shared religious ground and build a vision for peace and justice from that place? It sounds like that's what you're trying to do.
That's what we're doing, but we don't do it through dialogue. That's not our thing. We do it through action. Why does everybody want to work with us in the Muslim world? They do it because we bring results. They've given up on the secular left this because it doesn't bring any results. But they see that we don't. First of all, we don't have any interests. We don't have any money, and we only work from ideals. We only work from our belief, from where we come from our ethics and morals. That's what we work from, and that is the meeting place. So we have now the most extreme, some of the most extreme Muslim leaders. They're willing to sit now with the most extreme rabbis, and it's quite interesting. And this has happened after the 7th of October. The extreme rabbis would not sit with the Muslim leaders before. But now they're willing to sit because they also understand that something has to change. Something basically has to change. So this is also a development which we've seen.
Okay, I see a hand up is here from Rebelli. So Rebelli, if you want to unmute yourself.
Sure, yeah. First of all, thank you so much. This is really beautiful Torah and beautiful action. You said that you don't do dialogue. What's the shortcoming of dialogue in your experience? Why isn't that the path that you're taking?
First of all, I want to say I'm not against those who do dialogue. I also did it for many years when I was younger. But what I've seen is that the way we can get people on board is when we bring results. When they see that we've been able to save thousands of lives and solve all kinds of conflicts. Again, everything under the radar. We don't take credit for them. It's not in the newspapers. You won't be able to read them. But when people see, people know, and when they've seen that we've been able to do it, then they want on board, and then they want to join, and then when they join, then they bring the results, and and there's a whole positive this. When you just sit around the table and say, "Who am I? Who are you? And why are you not me? And I'm not you?" and it's not something I don't. I don't, when I can't see the practical results of the work, then it's often becoming it's a group of people who travel around the world, and they're the peacemakers, and they say the same things and have the same quotes, and I knew it off by heart. I stopped, I stopped doing it in year 2000 when I was at a religious peace conference in the UN. It was the it was the big religious, and I was sitting next to because I was representing Israel there, and I sat together on one hand with Iran and with another one with Iraq, the foreign ministers, and they were saying how peace loving they were, and quoting all kinds of, and I said, these are just empty words. It's not, and they go back home and they kill each other, and they kill each other and they kill us and they kill. It's not something which brings. It's not. People, if people see that it changes their lives, right? When we have violence now in the Arab sector in Israel, which is a terrible plague, which also creates more and more violence also in the Jewish sector, but that's besides the point. But we know that we have very courageous religious Arab Muslim leaders who go in and they solve it in their city, and they have a shita how to do it, and they wipe out the violence in their city. This is a concrete thing, and then another place wants to do exactly according to that shita, and so on. This is something which you copy paste something which is successful, and this is how it's done. And I know Rav Shmuley probably does the same in his work. When you have results, concrete results, then people want to join. And I did the same in when I worked in Europe and in many countries there in Europe, and we're trying to translate this also in the relations around the world between Muslims and Jews around the world.
Great. So I think it's the last question, given the time. Yechezkel, you want to jump in there?
Thank you so much. Rabbi Michael, Yishar Koach, for everything you've done over the years. I have such fond memories of working with you back in the Meimad and Oz V'Shalom, Netivot Shalom days. And I'm still in touch with Daniel Roth. He's my main contact to Mosaica. I'm still trying to get a sense of the tachlis here. What actions what's the basis for your success behind the scenes without publicity when you say that you achieve results and then people want to join? What guidance can you give us wherever we are in any conflict situation? What is the constructive approach that seems to work for you?
Well, first of all, if you're in contact with Rabbi Dr. Daniel Roth, then you are in contact with a good person, because he is the director of our program on the Jewish side, and he's doing a phenomenal job. Everybody can do. I mean, we have a very clear strategy of what we want and how we want to get there. And this is a strategy which I can't talk about on an open line, and I don't. But we know exactly what we want. We've been very involved also since the 7th of October. It wasn't a coincidence that none of the Israeli-Palestinian Arabs joined in on the 7th of October. This was one of the proofs of the success of our work. Not only they didn't join in, they went to every single mosque in Israel, in East Jerusalem, and by far and large also in Yehuda v'Shomron, and many also in Gaza, by the way, those who we're working with in Gaza. And they went out and they said, this is desecrating Islam. And there was not one incident. It wasn't because they were afraid of the police and so on, because there had been incidents in April, May 21, and that was of total different reason. And Sinwar called and begged them to join, and they didn't want to join. And even those who were thrown into prisons of no reason whatsoever and got out, they all called me, they said, don't abandon us now. And this showed that we were on solid ground, that showed me that we were on solid ground, that we had built up something which was very real and which could come over that. These were the Islamists opened their houses for those who were in Otef Aza. They said, come to us in Umm come to us in Kafar Qasem. Come and stay with us. If you don't have a place, you want to feel safe, come and stay with us. And this, it didn't happen anywhere in the world, because there were not that kind of relationships being built through results. And this is what we're doing now, how we're planning also forward. Now we were involved very much in negotiations. I can't talk about it, the hostages and so on. Many of the things I really can't and shouldn't talk about it. And we're also now involved in many of the diplomatic, we call it insider diplomacy, religious diplomacy. And we were involved both the political and the religious leaders together. And everyone can do in the circles, you can do whatever you can do to create, to speak, to do something, to help somebody, to reach out, to create something which is just and peace. You can do in your community, in your state, in your this, to have good people to speak up when it's necessary, or to solve the conflicts. And there's so much. I mean, you Cheskel, you have a long experience in doing good things, and there are lots of dangers out there now, because there's lots of incitement out there, and it comes from it can come from the right, and it can come from the left, and it can come from all kinds of places. But when you talk clear, and when you're clear about what you want, and you go the path for which Abraham Avinu was elected when he was chosen, and that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose him. And there are many partners for this, choosing what is tzedakah mishpat, what is the righteous way, what is the peaceful way. This is, I mean, you know how to do it. But I always bring the examples. We don't have time to go into it, but I learned this, and I have a whole shiur about that, and with lots of examples from Midrashim, both towards Jews and non-Jews, from what we learn in Parshat Mishpatim, that the best way you can make your enemy to turn him into your friend, which is the real gibor, which is the real hero, is to, when you see his donkey, when you see his car with flat tires, you help him change. You help him change the tires, and then he sees that you're not really his enemy, that you're really his friend. And then when you meet him later on in another this, he says, you were the one who helped me. You were not my enemy. You were my friend. And even as you all know, the source that that if you have a choice between helping your friend and helping your enemy, you should help your enemy first. And it's also a question of how we treat the animals. But there's lots of in those sources. But what's very interesting is that some of the sources go very, very far, and this is for another shiur, but it shows you that it's action oriented. It's not that you come and say, I want to be your friend, but you prove it, that you're willing to do something in order to turn things around and make him your friend.
Very powerful, Rabbi Melchior. Thank you so much. We're so grateful for your time and inspiration. We wish you so much continued chizuk and bracha for good health and strength and continued success in your work. And we will share this powerful teachings from today. So thank you all for joining us wherever you are on the live stream or on the Zoom. I see the Luxians over there giving a wave as well. So thank you for joining. And if you're in Eretz Israel, have a good night. Wherever you are, have a great day.